Hello, I am Jody Wolf, September 23, 2011, and about 10 minutes to midnight, Birmingham, Alabama. This is part 2 of incredible high fuel mileage. I'm going to pick up where I left off and just read one last sentence on here. Now, Mr. David Blackmore, again, the tester in the science portion of Shell Oil, quote, in a few years they would break the 1,000 mile per gallon barrier. And he went on to say, I think they did it in the late 70s. So I don't know if this man thought that or knew it or whatever, but in any case, again, he's retired and living in England. And he was English, by the way. So I'll pick up. Interviews from independents said this: the technology is there. And Representative Sherwood Boehlert, Republican, New York, former House Science Committee chairman, said there is no will to do so. There is no will to do so. He's not saying there's no way. It's just that no one has the initiative. And it's because, well, when I read on, you'll understand the why. So now back to Ken Cundy, the witness to the 100 mile per gallon car, said the reason for Shell Oil or any other oil company's reason is money. And no one needed to tell me that, you that, or anybody else that, but this is what he said. But do you want to know why people today, people like you and me, will not speak up? Well, you want to continue to live, right? I'll get on here in just a moment and you'll understand that. Now, a gentleman named Ernie Pierce said he worked for Continental Airlines and he was a technical supervisor, and he saw an article in the newspaper about a man named Tom Ogle in El Paso, Texas. He was in a car that was tested and he achieved 100 miles per gallon. He drove the car from El Paso to Deming, New Mexico, and back on 2 gallons and ran out of fuel in mid-El Paso. He started off with only 2 gallons in his car. He emptied the car, completely emptied the tank at a store, at a service station, and then went out to the pump in a can, poured 2 gallons in his car, and is off on his run. This was May the 1st, 1977. It was also in the El Paso Sunday paper and was titled 200 Miles on 2 Gallons of Gas. So Ernie Pierce had a 1972 Pinto, and he did the same to his car as Tom Ogle did. Tom Ogle, age 24, said he could reach as much as 160 miles per gallon, and during a second test drive to Deming, New Mexico on a 1970 Galaxy Ford 500, he went 205 miles on less than 2 gallons of gas. Tom Ogle had not even registered what he had invented, but Ernie Pierce did. So one day, Ernie was working on the project. He was in Las Vegas, and he was in a parking lot of the Sands, just getting ready because he was going to the racetrack. But he was in the parking lot, and 2 men, it's ironic, he said it like this, yelled out to him and said, how's your project coming? And he said, well, it's coming on. He said, and they said to him, well, did you hear the story about Tom Ogle? And Mr. Pierce said, what about him? And they responded and said, well, he's the guy that invented the vapor car. And Mr. Pierce said, okay. They said they found him. They said to Mr. Pierce, the authorities found Mr. Ogle dead. He was in the desert, that he had OD'd on drugs and on booze. And Mr. Pierce, really taken back, kind of said, is that right? And they responded to Mr. Pierce, you don't think they would let one man change the way they do business with gasoline, do you? So Mr. Pierce thought about it, kind of unnerved him, but he tried to let it slide. Later, Mr. Pierce said the men then said, didn't call my name, but said in 6 months, you'll be a dead man. Mr. Pierce was at the Vegas drag strip to test his car when the rest of this went down. It started at the Sands parking lot. They followed him to the drag strip, and the conversation ended there. He said, of course, after he left the Sands, then the owner of the drag strip had the press ready to do a story, and this was when he officially found out during the press, the newspaper, that in fact Tom Ogle was found dead. 2 weeks later, Mr. Pierce was at his home working on his car, and his wife asked him, who are those two guys sitting in front of the house? They're out there all the time. And she had mentioned with a video camera, and Mr. Pierce didn't know, but did notice. And he made sure, or they made sure, that he saw them watching him, watching Mr. Pierce. So Mr. Pierce said after 2 weeks he knew why. He thought about it and decided it was not worth losing his life or his family over this invention. Mr. Pierce did say to Ford Motor Company, if you want to work with me on this project, give me a call. They never did. He didn't go to Shell. He called Ford Motor Company and told them. It was said someone will give up the idea when they are enough out there that where they can't kill them all. In other words, he's saying when enough of us, me and you, build these things and get them out there and spread the word, then there's pretty much not anything they can do, because they're not going to turn around and start killing everybody that tells their neighbor or their friend or someone that's in the shop, hey, I got it done, I can put it in your car. And if you got 30 shops in town doing it, or 100 shops in a state, or 1,000 shops in the southeast or around Texas, then you're pretty much where you need to be. So Mr. Pierce, like you said, he dismantled. He took everything off of the car. He destroyed it and left it. And that was the end of Mr. Pierce continuing building what Tom Ogle had built. And I'm going to have to end this one here, and I'll pick it up in a minute on another one. Jody Wolf, EXPOZ.